with over 25 years of operational excellence and logistics transformation experience. And you've spent like 25 years within this industry. What has been the most fascinating part about the whole journey?
I would say seeing the transformation over time. So not just in my personal growth and professional over 25 years, starting back on the shop floor.
Definitely. And, with AI, especially being such a huge thing right now, I'm pretty sure you've seen so many different types of technologies over the years in digital transformation. We would love to hear an example of, something where you kind of worked through a transformational project or something, what made it successful. According to you, I know fulfillment has been a major differentiator in e-commerce, especially. What type of trends are you seeing that, companies can no longer afford to ignore that they used to do traditionally?
Speed is no longer a
How do you, work on equally pressing demands for speed and customer experience? How does that work?
It starts with understanding where cost.
Welcome, everyone, to the Vserve e-business solution podcast on supply chain management. This is where we invite some of the industry's great experts to share their experience and gather some helpful tips along the way for the future leaders. I'm Cynthia, your host, and today we are joined by a supply chain leader with over 25 years of operational excellence and logistics transformation experience. He has been the managing director of SCL Virtual's COO Solutions and SCO Recruitment. He's not only advising companies, but also connecting with them with the top tier talent from the industry. He has a very hands-on approach and also a proven record of scaling operations and reducing costs for companies in mostly FMCG and e-commerce industries. He brings a unique and dual perspective to the industry, so I'm very excited to introduce you to Rob Pegg. Rob, it's a pleasure to have you here today. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good as well, thank you. And we're so excited to have you here. I always start with that same question because it's fascinating to hear where you guys start from, but why supply chain? Why operations? How did it get here? You want to hear the whole scoop?
I was first drawn in originally by the complexity and the pace of it. Supply chain is one of the few disciplines where strategic thinking meets operational reality every single day. Makes me engaged is the constant evolution, new technologies over the years, shifting consumer expectations, and the challenging of aligning people, process, and performance, the 3Ps at scale.
Definitely. And you've spent like 25 years within this industry. What has been the most fascinating part about the whole journey?
I would say seeing the transformation over time. So not just in my personal growth and professional over 25 years, starting back on the shop floor like a lot of people do, but to come from there to now and see the growth of automation and AI and people's how they adapt to all these new technologies and emerging things throughout the years.
Yeah, definitely. And, with AI, especially being such a huge thing right now, I'm pretty sure you've seen so many different types of technologies over the years in digital transformation. We would love to hear an example of, something where you kind of worked through a transformational project or something, what made it successful. Any example?
One that stands out was a recent one involved consolidating multi-site operations into a single new automated hub. Success came from the clarity of the vision, stakeholder alignment, and the relentless execution. It's not just about systems; it's about what culture and leadership and trust. That was a very recent one that I worked on.
Yeah. And how do you manage that? How do you manage the whole cultural and the traditional aspect with, the transformation and digitalization part?
Clarity and constant communication.
Yep.
That cliche of communication never gets old, and it starts with communication.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the diehard statements that lives on forever. No matter if you're using automation or you're using AI or how good your leaders are, if nobody's communicating, you're going to fall down at the first hurdle.
Exactly. The communication is the biggest part of it all. And I hear everybody kind of mention the whole culture and the communication aspect of it. According to you, I know fulfillment has been a major differentiator in e-commerce, especially. What type of trends are you seeing that companies can no longer afford to ignore that they used to do traditionally?
Speed. Speed is no longer a luxury. It's expected.
Yep.
Without speed, without accuracy or flexibility, is meaningless. Companies
Yeah.
must embrace predictive analysis, last mile innovation, and real time visibility. Those
Mhm.
still relying on legacy models are going to be left behind.
Definitely. And yeah, I like you said, communication is very important. So when it comes to, balancing the whole cost reduction, right? The need for cost reduction, that's for every company. How do you work on equally pressing demands for speed and customer experience? How does that work?
It starts with understanding where cost adds value and where it erodes
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Efficiency should never compromise experience. So the best operators use data to optimize trade-offs, automate
Mm.
intelligently, and design networks with flex in demand.
Exactly. So, like in your view, then what separates an organization, I would say, that scales successfully from that stall in growth and, that are just there in the industry?
Scalable organizations invest in leadership systems and governance early.
Hmm. Hmm.
They avoid kind of the hero-led models and build repeatable processes. I think that's a fundamental part of it. Those
Hmm.
stall often chase growth without structure, leading to fragmentation and burnout, which is kind of the reason why I launched the SCL COO virtual solutions. Because a lot of small SMEs don't have the cash or the resources to
Hmm.
front hundreds of thousands of pounds with of a COO or an operational director, etc. But
Yeah.
with a virtual fractional leader, you can have all the expertise of 25 years experience, or somebody else has got a lot more experience than myself for a fraction
Yeah.
of the cost. But what you do also get with that is immediate impact, rather than having somebody spending 40 hours a week in a warehouse, for example.
Yeah.
You get a
Yeah.
condensed experience for 1 day a month or 1 day per week. So
Yeah.
you get all the benefits with a fraction, excuse the pun, of the cost.
That's exactly. I mean, there's so many different, impacts that it has created overall over the years. Like, what lessons you think you've learned, from just about building or sustaining high performing teams, even like in demanding environments, especially FMCG and e-commerce that changes so frequently. What are some of the lessons that you have learned over the years?
The lessons are that there's no stupid questions. Ask all the
Uh,
questions you can. I mean, you hear that term often, but people sometimes will get embarrassed about asking questions that they think people think they should know the answer to, which I
mhm.
fell foul to numerous times, working myself through the ranks. And always saying yes to things, but not fully understanding the question or what was being asked of me.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest one.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen so many companies do that. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we do that too, right? So when our bosses tell us something like, "Hey, this is going to happen," we're like, "Yeah, yeah, we understand it," but we don't really, because when we go in front of the client to explain it, then we're like completely lost in what that thing is. So definitely, it's how you understand the process really helps.
Even
And
questioning that and asking them that and taking that extra 30, 60 seconds to say, can you just really clarify what you actually mean and break it down for me? I don't know, in simple terms that a 15-year-old could understand, or whatever you're going to use is going to save you hours of work trying to navigate the question or the scenario you don't fully understand, or then rolling back all the wrong things you did when you realize
exactly.
what the ask was.
Yeah, learn something before you dive into it is
Correct.
what they say. So, exactly, I completely agree with that. And there's so many companies that during this process they consider offshoring services, right? Like some types of supply chain or fulfillment functions, mostly back office work that best fit that model. According to you, what are some of those, jobs that you see are best fit for the offshore model?
I would say transactional processes, such as order management, inventory reconciliation, and reporting are ideal. Strategic functions, however, require proximity to decision makers and market dynamics. The key is knowing what to offshore and what to retain.
Yep.
And I've learned this quite recently also in a different aspect from a recruitment and the CRO solutions. I'm a solo entrepreneur right now with two businesses going. So trying to offshore some of the tasks that are not that are transactional, but then trying to work out which part of the globe you're going to offshore them is also interesting, because of people in different areas that speak English in a first language, like South Africa, that I've learnt recently, that is different to other parts of the world where this English is not the first language. So when they're trying to do these processes and understand it, or if they're going to answer the phone on my behalf and doing, I don't know, CV data mining and doing first interviews, having a conversation with somebody that's got an English fluency or first language, even if they're offshore, helps. But when they're just doing data mining and getting me lead generation for B2B, they not necessarily need that. They just need to be able to interpret data and interrogate systems quickly. Understanding what transactional processes I would say is the ones to offshore, which part of the world you want to offshore to, depending on the experience of that area, you're going to do that too.
Exactly. And cultural differences as well, right? So we hear that a lot. Like, they didn't understand, like, the manager would try to say something to the person to get it done in the offshore facility, but it wasn't communicated correctly. It was communicated in their cultural aspect. So it was like broken apart right there. But it's mostly that, right? Like, understanding when to say, hey, I didn't understand. Can you explain that again to me, like a 15-year-old? Which is where the problem starts, I guess. So definitely, I agree with you. So what's your philosophy then on leadership during, like, times of this, like restructuring or offshoring, especially high pressure transformation phases that you've gone through over the years? What's your philosophy for the leadership team?
3 C's: clarity, consistency, and compassion. People need to understand the why and understand what is being asked of them, see the roadmap, and feel supported. In times of change, leadership is not about control. It's about confidence and credibility. That's where sometimes, even me, if I was being the leader, I may not know all the answers, and I'm never going to preach to people I will know all the answers. But it's recognizing and understanding how to get to the correct answer, either individually or as a team.
Definitely. And like, can you share an example of one such time that you have gone through, difficult conversations of establishing that connection with the team? Any example?
So a few years back, I did a transformation project on a part-time basis to expand the supply chain into Europe. I was the leader of the project, obviously, with my experience. However, I'd never expanded into Europe, so all the things about the legalities about expanding the business in the UK and etc. It's totally different outside the UK borders, and I learned that quite abruptly. But I was 20 years into my leadership experience and very seasoned, and learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I knew quickly that I needed to get expert European expertise to support myself in leading the project. And the fact that I kind of put my hand up straight away from day one, said, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So here's these other people that's going to help us on these aspects of the best legalities, cultural differences when they're working in Europe, because they don't particularly like working Saturday, Sundays in the area that I was expanded into, example. That gave me a lot of credibility within the team, because they could see that actually it's not a bad thing to say, I don't really know, but we'll find out together by speaking to these individuals.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a perfect example. So, like, through your company, SCL Recruitment, I know you've sat on a lot of like intersections of talent and operation. What leadership skills are most in demand today, according to you? What should the future generation look for when they're going into these operations in the future?
I would say there's 3. A couple of them are stable and they've been there for a while, and the third one is emerging, and it's just getting more and more prevalent, as you can imagine. So I would say adaptive stakeholder influence, but then digital fluency, given the expanding market of AI, etc. Leaders have got to navigate ambiguity, drive change, and build cross-functional trust. Technical depth is important, but behavioral agility is what sets them apart from the rest.
Definitely. And digitalization is going to be huge, moving forward. The whole AI thing, it's going to be like the next gen, right? So, and then how do you evaluate? How does a company evaluate, like, okay, it needs an interim or a fractional leader or a permanent operational leader? How do you decide when is the good time to change or bring in someone new? How does that happen?
It depends on the problem. As you can imagine, every problem is different. Interim leaders solve immediate challenges, turnarounds, transitions, or gaps. Permanent hires build long-term capability. So the decision hinges on urgency, scope, and strategic intent. But that's not to say that interim leaders can't build long-term capability, because they come with a lot of experience to set the foundations and the staples of a permanent hire. And obviously, a lot of it comes down to, so some of the SMEs want a permanent hire, but like I said, forking out 125k per annum for a COO or whatever it may be, when you're trying to grow and set the boundaries and make sure that the foundations are set, that's not necessarily sustainable in the long term. So if you're going to get a fractional COO for 25k per year and get a couple of days a month out of them, that always benefits them. And what I've always done with the ones that I'm working with right now, even though they only pay for example, 2 days per week, it's not necessarily you've got me Monday, Tuesday, don't bother ringing me the rest of the week. It's kind of you're paying for a service, I don't know, equivalent to 16 hours. If you ring me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I answer the phone, then that's fine. You're not going to pigeonhole. You've got a crisis on a Thursday, but don't ring me because you only pay for Monday, Tuesday. It doesn't necessarily work like that. It's flexible.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends on the operation, right? So each operation might be different. So perfect. So actually talking about digitalization and technology, how do you think it continues to reshape logistics? And I'm pretty sure there's so many examples. Where do you see the most exciting opportunities for digital adoption, especially in fulfillment?
AI-driven forecasting, autonomous warehousing, real-time delivery, orchestration. That's the right phrase to use. The future lies in the systems that learn, adapt, and optimize without manual intervention. I see fulfillment is becoming a real data science area. And again, they're all kind of transactional processes that have been inherently in the past had somebody with experience, and trying to get the right experience for your business is not always easy, because they're not always like for like. Every single warehouse, logistics, fulfillment center, or whatever it is you're working in, have always got their own nuances. Even if you think they're like for like, they've always got nuances with people's behavior, warehouse flow, for example. But the AI and automation will keep it very structured and can learn with the data it's got individual on the warehouse.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't even know where it's going. Like, it's been so rapidly growing as of now. It's going to be fascinating to see how and where it grows. So according to you, like, what role do you think, fits this whole sustainability and I think it's called ESG goals mostly, that play in the shaping of the supply chain over the next decades, as you see the whole digitalization going to the next level?
I think we can all see from what's happening over the last numerous years with carbon footprints and how the globe's changing with the climate crisis. It's going to become non-negotiable. Carbon transparency, ethical sourcing, and circular models will define competitive advantage. Supply chains have got to evolve from being cost centers to value creators, and sustainability is going to be at the core of that.
Yeah. Exactly. Rob, this has been such an interesting conversation, to the point, very practical. And I almost don't want to let you go. So I'm going to ask you my one last question that I ask everyone, is to give that one piece of advice that you would have given to your future past self, actually, for supply chain leader, and how they can embark on this major transformation, and what should it be, and any tips for the future generation.
Yeah, of course. Start with people. Technology and processes follow. Transformation will fail without cultural alignment. So build trust, communicate relentlessly, and lead visibly. The journey is important. It's as important as the destination, as people say.
So people, always put your money on people. This has been an exciting conversation, and I hope you felt the same way too. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. Thank you.
Hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.